Hey there, Coastal Georgia. This is Brian Weese. I'm Director of Career Development here at the Compass Career and Academic Advising Center. We review about 2,000 resumes a year out of this office. And so what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is provide some tips and tricks and talk about the top 9 mistakes that we see most often in this office. And hopefully this will, if you decide to submit your resume to the Compass Center, will help you get your resume reviewed and approved quicker so that you can get out there and start applying for those jobs and internships. So by far, one of the most common mistakes we see in resume writing is the inclusion of an objective statement. Objective statements usually come at the top of the resume, right underneath your name and your address and telephone number and email address. And it's supposed to be like this opening statement that inspires employers to want to hire you. The problem with the objective statements is that they're very me-oriented, and they don't really give the employer any feedback or any reasons why they should consider hiring you. What are you offering them? And so if you take a look at this example here that I'm going to put up, this objective statement is just not very good. None of them are. But seeking an opportunity to prove efficiency and unsurpassed work ethic within a challenging laborer position. What does that even mean? It just doesn't add anything or inspire the employer for any reason to hire you. It's very me-oriented. Seeking an opportunity. I'm looking for an opportunity with your company. Again, that doesn't inspire any kind of interest in the employer. To prove efficiency and unsurpassed work ethic, again, to prove myself, basically, with your company within a challenging laborer position. Challenging labor position, again, is kind of me-oriented. It's just very me. The challenge that we face with this is that Microsoft Word puts this on pretty much every template that you download from them. And the reason for that is because Microsoft Word was created in the 80s and 90s. These templates probably haven't really evolved much since then. So when you go into Microsoft Word and you pull up a template, it's going to have objective at the top of it. And so because it's on there, you just feel like, well, you know what? It says it's here. I probably should put an objective statement on. And then you put something on here that looks pretty much like this. It just really is all about you and really has nothing to offer the employer. The solution here, though, would be to replace the word objective with summary of qualifications. And then I would probably list 4 to 5 bullet points. And if you look at this in the perspective of the employer, if the employer asks you, why should I hire you? Give me 5 reasons to hire you. And then you might say things like 4 years of experience in a busy retail establishment serving diverse populations. That'd be a really good bullet. Another one might be knowledgeable of Microsoft Office, including Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And then so forth and so forth. So just giving the employer reasons that make you the right candidate for that position. It's going to be much more effective than putting in some kind of objective statement that's really just a bunch of fancy words and doesn't mean anything and is really more about you than it is about the employer. So probably the second most common mistake that we see made on resumes is the use of personal pronouns. So a personal pronoun would be words like I, we, us, they, me, them. So you want to take those out of your statements. It's not when you're writing a statement on your resume. You're not writing a biography. So you don't say I did this and I did that. But that's very, very common. We see that quite a bit. So you want to take those words off. So if you take a look at the example that I'm going to put up here, you can see that it first started with in this job bullet, I performed marketing analysis and research. All right, and so all you have to do to fix this really is just to take the word I off and say performed marketing analysis and research. It just makes the statement more succinct and it takes out extraneous words that just really don't add anything to it. And it just adds a little bit more professional language to it. So make sure you're taking out your personal pronouns. Now next, there's a common misconception that resumes should be very brief and very succinct. And while that's true to a point, you don't want to completely go so far with it that you kind of undersell what you're trying to sell. Basically, remember this: a resume is basically your sales brochure, and you want to make sure that you're adequately selling the skills and abilities that you have. So a lot of times we see, especially when applicants are filling out, kind of putting their job duty bullets underneath their employment history, that they decide that they go way too far in cutting things out, and then you basically end up with a bullet that doesn't mean anything. So take a look at this example right here. Starts out with this person put ran a cash register. There's a lot wrong with that statement. One, the cash registers don't run. You can operate a cash register, but you don't run one. And also, what does it mean to run a cash register anyway? There's so much more going into it. So what we suggest is using the STAR method. So situation or task, action, and results. And so the situation and the task plus the action plus the results equals one strong bullet for your job description. And then you would repeat that process over and over again. So in this example, ran a cash register, you probably would start out with what did you do, situation or task, what did you do? Operated a point of sale system, sounds a lot better than ran a cash register, right? So what did you do, situation or task, operate a point of sale system, action, how did you do that? What are the steps involved in doing that? To process customer orders and receive payments via cash, credit, or check. Something along those lines, right? That's the kind of the how you operate or run a cash register. And then the results there. And so the result might be something very solid, maybe like resulting in 100% drawer accuracy, or it could be something to, along the lines of a little bit, reducing cash overages and shortages at the end of the night, something along those lines. Here I just put a made appropriate change as needed. So that's kind of just the result of the process that you're doing. So situation or task, action, result. Putting those together, what you did, how you did it, and why you did it, creates a strong bullet that shows an employer that you know what you're doing. And really, if you think about it, what the employer is really interested in knowing is the result, the end of it. So that you understand the reason behind what you're doing. You understand the purpose behind it. Anybody can run a cash register, but not everybody understands that at the end of the night it needs to be perfectly balanced, and that it needs to be 100% accurate, or it increases sales or decreases loss and things like that. So the employer is interested actually in the results, result oriented here. So when you're putting these bullets out there, make sure that you're going through this process and you're giving them the full information about the knowledge that you have, and not just running a cash register or taking orders or delivering goods, whatever it is. Make sure you're putting some real emphasis into everything that you do, the process involved in doing that. A lot of times we'll encounter when reviewing resumes where students have just put down a lot of buzzwords without any context. And so they may put down, like in our summary of qualifications that we talked about already, they may put may just put a bullet and says hard worker. There's no context behind that. And so if you don't have any proof, or you can't prove it in your statement, then it shouldn't be put on there. So make sure that you're putting some real teeth to your statement. So maybe a better bullet instead of hard worker would be maintained full-time college course load while working full-time. That to me says hard worker better than just saying the word hard worker. Hard worker, again, is an opinion. The employer might look at you and say, you don't work nearly as hard as this guy I've already got working here, so why would I hire you? So you want to be careful with opinionated words that really don't have any basis behind them or any context. So make sure that when you're putting things down, make sure that when you're putting your statements in there, that you're not just using an opinion that has no context to it. I've seen a lot of times attention to detail. That's a popular one on a resume. And matter of fact, one time I saw somebody had put the bullet attention to detail under their summary qualifications, and they misspelled attention. So obviously not true, and really was baseless anyway. They actually proved the opposite in that instance. But even if they had spelled attention right, there's no proof behind that. So to put a statement where they were able to maintain 100% drawer accuracy, or employee of the month 3 times in a row, or something along those lines, is much more has much more factual and much more evidence to it than just putting some baseless word on there. So be careful with that. Don't sell yourself on opinions. Make sure that you're providing context around your statements, so that the employer can really judge that statement based on the proof that you provide them. Another very common issue we see on resumes is the inclusion of the words references available upon request at the bottom of a resume. It's just not necessary. Obviously, if an employer asks you for references, are you going to give them to them? Probably, or you wouldn't have applied for the job. So it's really just not even necessary. I will blame this on Microsoft Word. Again, those templates that are out there, a lot of them have references available upon request at the bottom or something along those lines, and it's just not necessary. So if you get a template and it has it on there. Next on our top 9 list would be, this one's a little bit complicated, but orphaning a job duty or a bullet on one page when the rest of its family is on the other page. And so if you think about it, if you're putting something on a resume and as a section, maybe it's one of your jobs, you don't want to put the job information and where you worked and the job title and the dates and all that, and maybe one bullet on page 1, and then the next 3 bullets are on page 2. It just kind of breaks the continuity of that, and you don't want to do that. So you need to keep everything together. Keep things together. And it's very easy when you're using a word processing program, Microsoft Word or Google Docs or something like that. The page just looks like one continuous page. You don't know really when you're writing it, is it 2 pages, is it 16 pages, whatever. It just looks like one continuous thing. But you need to make sure that you either print the resume out or use a print preview and see where your pages are breaking. And making sure that you're not disjointing something that needs to be kept together. Make sure it's all kept together. You might have to change your margins a little bit. You might have to rearrange your resume so that this job or this list of things, relevant coursework. If you don't want to have six courses on one page and then the other 6 on the next page. You want to keep all that together. So kind of keep continuity in mind and don't split things over 2 pages or multiple pages. You keep it all together so that it's very easy to read, and so that when you flip the page to the next one, or the employer flips the page to the next one, the very top of it is a new item, a new idea, a new thing. So it's all kept continuous on the page. So it's very common when writing a resume to sometimes forget the verb tense of what you're doing. And so you got to remember, if you're writing about something you're still doing, currently doing, like where you're currently employed, it's going to be present tense. If it's something you no longer do anymore, like your last job, it's going to be past tense. So make sure that you're using the correct tense. So if, for example, you operated a cash register, if you don't do it anymore, if it's an old job and you put operated a cash register, that would be fine. If it's a job you're still doing, though, it needs to say operate a cash register to do whatever. So make sure the EDs and things like that are consistent with the verb tense. Another thing with verb tense is never use ing. And we see this it's very common, and it comes up a lot. And I think it's just when you're writing a resume, you're thinking, what are the things I do? And so a lot of times we'll see operating a cash register too, okay? Don't use the ing. That's actually based, I think, from English, if I remember my English classes well enough, it's called a gerund. And a gerund is a weaker form of a verb. And so you want to use a more active, more powerful form. So it would be operate or operated, but don't use operating. So no ing verbs in your resume. It just kind of makes your resume weaker. So be very careful with your verb tense and make sure you're going over it before you turn it into an employer especially, but also make sure you send it over to us and have us look at it and make sure those verb tenses are correct yourself before you send it over to us, because we will mark it and say, hey, you need to fix your verb tenses. So take a look at that. Okay, so we're getting here to the end. We've got 2 more most common mistakes. These are fairly simple and very easy to fix, but you need to pay attention to them. So the first one here would be starting a second page but not filling it. Again, Microsoft Word, you're using it, you're typing things in, it looks good, page looks like it flows fine, but make sure you do a print preview or print it out and look at it and make sure that you're not doing those page breaks in the wrong place, but also make sure that you're filling the entire second page. We see that very common, or even if it's a 1-page resume, make sure you're getting all the way to the first page. So if you think about it, a resume is your sales brochure. And so if you've ever been to a car dealer and you pick up a sales brochure, and it'd be the Honda Fit, great car, and it's got this, this, and this, they don't put 3 pages of blank stuff in the back of it. It's a waste of opportunity right there. And so an employer will see it as either you're lazy and you just didn't feel like filling out the rest of the resume, or that you're wasteful with the resources that you have available to you, meaning the rest of that resume where you could have sold yourself. Or again, and third with that is that you just don't take the opportunities that are given to you. All of those are negative things that you don't want an employer to think about you. So you want to fill the page. You want to, if it's going to be a 2-page resume, you got to get all the way to the bottom of page 2, consistent with page 1, so where your margins and all match. It's very common for us to see resumes that are a page and a third or a page and a half, and it's a wasted opportunity to sell yourself. And so you want to use that space. There's something else you can put on there. Volunteer work, relevant coursework is a great filler. So if you just got an extra 3 inches on the bottom of the page and you need something, just put relevant coursework and put all the classes you've taken, mostly 3,000, 4,000 level classes. Intro to biology is probably not relevant, but some of the 4,000 level class biology classes would be relevant. So put those on there. Use it to fill space. Again, we talk about volunteer work, honors and awards, anything like that, clubs and organizations, all these things that you do while you're in college, you need to be giving yourself credit for. Most of the time, people just forget what they did, and so they miss an opportunity to put things on there that'll help sell them even better. So make sure you're taking full use of the page, top to bottom, and if it's 2 pages, all the way to the bottom of the first page, all the way to the bottom of the second page. There's plenty of things you can put on there, and if you need any help with that, obviously the Compass Center, come by and we can sit down and kind of go through your life experiences and find that stuff that's going to be important for your resume. And lastly, the last thing that we see happens a lot on resume writing is incorrect date order. So I think a lot of times when you're writing a resume, you think about kind of writing a biography, and then you say, well, when I was 6, I did this, and when I was 7, I did this, and when I was 8, I did this. But you don't do it that way on a resume. It's not a biography. It's going to be reverse chronological order. So the most recent thing you've done needs to be, if you're doing a section, then maybe your most recent work experience needs to be the first work experience. If it's a current job, it needs to be at the top. If it's the job that happened before that, it goes under the current job. And the job that happened before that goes under it. So you're working your way backwards. That just gives, first of all, it shows the employer probably your highest level, what you've done. That's probably the biggest thing that you've done. Usually you're going to progress in a career. Your first job's going to be entry level, your next job's going to be a little bit higher, then higher, then higher. So when you're doing a resume, then that highest job is going to be first. But that applies to other areas too. So honors and awards. If you had multiple honors or multiple awards, the most recent award you got is going to go at the top, and then the one that you got before that's going to go below it, and then below it, and below it, and below it. Volunteer work. Most recent thing you did as a volunteer goes at the top. Work your way down. It's always reverse chronological order. I know sometimes you may want something to stand out, and you want to put it first, and if there's other things that happened after it, that are more recent, they need to go in reverse chronological order. So if you want to spotlight something, then we need to create a different section or make it, reword it or do it in a way that you can highlight that thing. But if you're going to put a list of things in date order, it's got to be most recent at the top and work your way backwards. So there you have it. Those are our top 9 resume mistakes. Again, we review about 2,000 resumes a year out of this office, and those are the mistakes that we find that happen the most often. And hopefully by sharing this information with you, when you go sit down to do your own resume, that you won't make these mistakes. And that way we can focus on some of the other things that we need to look at, just the little nuts and bolts of the resume, to help you get the perfect resume in as little effort as possible. We don't want this to be a hard exercise for you, but we want to make sure that your resume is good or great, really. You're going to walk out of here one day with a great diploma, a great degree in whatever field you're in, but you also want to have a great resume to go along with it, because the two things go together hand in hand, and those are the 2 documents that are going to help you get that first job and then move through your career over the years. And so you want to make sure that they're good. You're going to have a great diploma. You want to make sure you have a great resume too. So if you ever need anything, feel free to stop by Compass Career and Academic Advising. We're in Academic Commons South on the first floor, the end of the building, underneath the big oak trees, right on the sidewalk. You see a big red sign in the window that says "Want a Job?" That's us. Every major has its own Compass advisor now, and so you can look on the portal and see who your Compass advisor is. It'll be listed right there on the CCJ portal, and you can click on that name, and it'll actually send them an email if you want. So it's very easy to reach out to. Also, if you want to check out the resume writing program in Coastal CareerLink, or if you want to submit your resume through Coastal CareerLink, you log into the portal and click on Coastal CareerLink, and it'll take you right to the system where you can upload your resume, you can view jobs, you can use the resume builder, submit your resume for a review. All of this stuff is right there in Coastal CareerLink. It's kind of our one-stop shop, so make sure you check that out. And if you ever need anything, come by and see us. Appreciate it. Have a good day.